Sean. Appreciate that. And young people are dismissed to your class. You can follow Joanne to the back room, and you'll have a great time. I know that. All right. Well, again, this is a continuation of our Animate series based upon this curriculum. And so we're going to watch this first video. The second week, so to speak, of this video of the curriculum is a lady named Lillian Daniels. So we're going to go ahead and watch the first little clip from this video.
When I was a kid, my mother planned a big springtime garden party. At the heart of her vision was that our backyard would be just filled with daffodils blooming from bulbs that she had planted the previous fall. But as the party date approached, the weather stayed cold and no daffodils were even close to blooming. Yet on the day of the party, our lawn was filled with daffodils just as she had dreamed. The guests just marveled at the springtime beauty of our yard, especially since no garden in the neighborhood had any springtime action like that. But after the guests went home, the daffodils drooped, and my mother crawled through the yard, carefully removing each of the cut daffodils that she'd bought at the florist and attached to chopsticks with little twist ties, and then carefully stuck in the ground. Now, those daffodils were not fake, but they were just short-lived and flimsy, with no bulb under the earth to allow them to survive the rough weather. On the surface, and for a short while, they looked like real daffodils, but they didn't have enough going on underneath to last. I think that's similar to how the life of faith works. You can go to the religious flower shop and pick up a little of this and a little of that and just decorate your life with it. You can visit this religious community with its art and watch a documentary about the other one. You can read one deep thinker after another. You can say you believe in 1,000 wise sayings and make yourself your own pretty bouquet of blossoms, all ready for the party or the picnic on a sunny day. But life is not a picnic. And those of us who finally dig in and put down roots in one tradition, a tradition that is bigger than ourselves, well, I think we've figured that out. Tired of decorating our lives with bouquets of our own choosing, we're ready to go deeper and even ready to put in the work that it requires, because being part of a religious tradition takes work.
The way she tells the story about the flowers and her mother like faking that she successfully planted and grew those flowers reminds me of, I don't know, pick any classic sitcom. In fact, we've been watching Leave It to Beaver. I used to watch it all the time as a kid, and I'm showing it to Sarah, and the boys are somewhat interested in it, but they're mostly just asking to watch YouTube instead. But you can imagine like young kids, parents telling their kids, clean your room, and so kids take all of their dirty clothes and toys or whatever, and they shove them into the closet and shut the door, and it looks like the room is clean, right? And so like, look at this clean room, this is great. And then you open the door and it all spills out, right? Well, that's sort of what she was getting at there, and what we're talking about today. And like, it can seem like we have our life together, especially if you're somebody who feels like you don't need religion and you don't need faith. I can figure out life on my own, and I can, just pick and choose from here or there, and I should be fine. Well, it might look like your room is clean. It might look like your life is okay, but I think you'll find over time is that it doesn't actually turn out too okay for you, and you really should be part of something bigger than yourself, part of something that's long-lasting, like a religion. Now, that word religion, some people recoil at it, right? I don't know, maybe even some of you are not, you don't particularly like the word religion. Certainly in our, when I say our, I usually look to my sister or parents, and because we grew up in a different church than Glad Tidings, right? And a Pentecostal charismatic church. And in that tradition, to say that you were offering people religion was just, you wouldn't speak that way. Because all too often, people would, as I said, recoil at the thought of religion. I don't want any religion. What are people thinking of when they hear the word religion? Well, they're probably thinking of a huge, Catholic type church and Catholic type atmosphere where you don't really understand what's happening when you go to church, and you just kind of sit there and go through the motions, and the pastor or the priest or whomever is not really open to questions or open to helping you out and just sort of expects a lot from you. And so that kind of religion is distasteful to a lot of people. It turns people off, right? And so in the tradition that I grew up in, that sort of charismatic Pentecostal tradition, I would often hear people say to other people out in the world, they would say, well, I'm not a part of a religion. It's a relationship, not a religion. Like, what we're trying to offer you is not a religion, but a relationship with God. That's what people would say. And there's a truth to that, because we are indeed looking for a relationship with God. That's what we looked at over the past couple of weeks is, look, God, and we talked about what are we saying when we talk about God? Well, think about, we're looking for purpose in our lives, right? We all want to feel like we're here for a reason, right? We don't want to feel like life is meaningless. So we're looking for purpose and meaning. We're looking for belonging. We want to feel like we're a part of something bigger than ourselves, right? We're looking for morality, for good versus evil, right? We want to understand that there is such a thing as justice, and that justice can win out in the end, right? And so we've looked at that, and you can say all of that stuff, that those sort of abstract ideals that we're searching for and longing for, that is summed up in God. That's what we're talking about when we talk about God. God is love, right? When we say that, we're saying God is everything that we associate positively with love. And we're pursuing that in our lives. And we don't have really a way to speak about that except in terms of metaphor or images. So we speak, as we said, we speak about God as our Father. We speak about God as our King. We speak about God as a spirit. All of these different ways that we speak about God, because quite frankly, how else are we going to speak about God? We don't know what God actually is, so we have to use this language to speak about God. But what we're pursuing is God himself, is all of those things that I just mentioned, like meaning and purpose and morality. And so faith is a journey, as we've been talking about. Faith is a journey. So in that sense, it is more about a relationship than a religion, right? It's more about the journey of faith towards God and with God than it is about the different things that we do here at church or as a Christian. But you shouldn't throw the baby out with the bathwater, right? There's a reason why religion has lasted all of these thousands of years and why people see value in it, because there is value in it. So we're going to talk about this very briefly here. Last week, Brian McLaren talked about that there's a difference between a fortress type of faith versus the cloud type of faith. What did he mean by that? Well, some people view faith, and in particular the religion that we're talking about, like the different things we believe and do as Christians, they view it as like a fortress. And what do you do with a fortress? You defend it, right? And so if anybody tries to challenge your faith, you defend it, you fight them on it, right? But on the other hand, there are people who think of faith as like a cloud. And what is a cloud? It's barely there. It can easily be blown away, right? A cloud doesn't have a firm foundation. And so for them, if somebody attacks their faith or is questioning them, they can be swayed every which way. So I think there has to be something in the middle where we're not fighting with one another or against unbelievers, but we're also not so uncertain and so, wishy-washy that we don't have anything to stand on, right? So we have to find something in the middle, and that is this journey of faith that we're on, where we can pursue religion, pursue what we believe in and do, while at the same time being open-minded, open to questions, opening to change, and we go forward in that way. So again, neither approach is the best one. The best approach is, again, a relationship with God, the journey towards him and with him. So, as a part of this journey, a religion can give us roots. it can help us and make us feel like it's not all about me. Like I'm not just making this up. I'm a part of something bigger than myself. And so what does the word, like if we're talking about a religion, who needs religion? And we're talking about something bigger than ourselves, something that gives us roots and keeps us going on the journey so that we're not blown away and we're not just, we're going for a while and then we give up. So what are we talking about when we talk about religion? Well, it's always good to know what we're talking about by looking at the meaning of the word itself. And the interesting thing about the word religion is people aren't absolutely certain what it means. There's two opinions about what it means. One is it means that which binds us. Like it's related to a verb that means to bind. And what does that mean? Well, we're talking about things that we do which bind us together, bind us both as individuals to that tradition, the things that we do either by believing things or doing things, but also binding all of us together because we're all subscribing to that same tradition. And so we have a common purpose, common mission that we're on. But that's one definition. The other definition is repetitive traditions, doing things over and over again. And sometimes we can feel like religion is doing the same things over and over again. But that's not really fair to religion because life is made up of things we do over and over again. I don't know about you, but do you have any habits? Do you do anything over and over again, both good and bad? And you're like, I just do this all the time, right? We are creatures of habit. We are stuck in our habits most of the time, and it's very hard to break out of your habits or make new ones, right? And so a religion is that which gives us something to do on a consistent, habitual basis, but with a greater purpose, more so than just, this is the way I like to go out and do something that relaxes me, and I do the same thing every week or whatever. You can pick any tradition or habit that you have. Well, why not engage in habits that center you and focus you in on God and on the pursuit of God? That's what a religion is supposed to be. That which binds us together and binds us to a tradition, and there's a repetitive nature to that tradition. So, before we get into those two things a little more deeply, I just want to say about the people who say it's a relationship, not a religion, they're not wrong. And you should look at it in terms of priority. You should firstly view faith as a journey, as I've been saying, right? A relationship with God, right? And we don't always know exactly what that means or what that looks like, but that's the point of a journey, is sometimes you can have a destination and you might even have GPS and you can still make a wrong turn, right? You can still go down a path that you didn't expect. And that's the point of a journey, is there are unknowns, but we know what the destination is and God is with us on that journey. But it would be really, really wrong to say that even though faith is mostly about a relationship with God, it would be wrong to say that there's no such thing as religion as a part of what we're doing. Even those wonderful charismatics that we grew up with, that my family and I grew up with, who said, oh, it's just a free, it's a religion. I'm so free in God. I don't have a religion, they would say. And yet, these same people, and I can attest to it because I was there, would go to the same church every Sunday morning at the same time. They would sing from the same collection of songs that we would always sing from. They would pray in a similar manner all the time. They would do certain things throughout the week in the same way. So guess what that is? That's a religion, right? And so let me just say this. No matter who you are, you're going to have a religion. Get this, even atheists have a religion, right? Because there's no such thing as living a human life without getting into habits and doing things in a sort of ritualistic way or habitual way. That is a part of human existence. It's built into our biology. So, even though we should prioritize the relationship part, there is a religion part to our faith. And so instead of acting like it's not there, why don't we acknowledge it and be conscious of it and understand what we're doing and what we could be doing. So the first thing is that which binds us, right? Like I said, a religion is that which binds us to that tradition, that faith tradition, but it also binds us together as we all subscribe to that tradition. And so I can actually break it down into a few different ways. So Lynn, the only slide that will be up there is that one, so you don't have to worry about changing slides here. But I'll let you all know what I'm saying here. The first thing is we are bound together in a common purpose, right? And I mean this both, again, individually. We all want purpose and meaning and belonging and all these great things, morality and justice. And think about it this way. We also all need redemption. We all need forgiveness and salvation. There's no perfect people out there. We're all sinners, right? There's a slide. For everyone has sinned, and we all fall short of God's glorious standard. If that's not a universal truth, I don't know what is, right? That we're all a little crummy sometimes. Isn't that the case? No one's perfect. We've all made mistakes. We all hurt people and hurt ourselves at some point. And so we need somebody to help us and to save us from that. So whatever you are longing for in your life, or whatever things that you need, you can think to yourself, hey, I'm not alone. You know, sometimes I think, especially in my past, if I've done something particularly sinful or something that wasn't good, I would often think to myself, I'm just the worst person in the world. Have you ever thought about that after you've done something wrong? Like, there's no one who's worse than me. I'm the worst person in the world. Well, what religion gives us is it gives us the reality check to say, yeah, no, everybody is going through this. Everybody sucks sometimes, right? So everybody is in need of redemption and forgiveness and is pursuing purpose and meaning and so on. So being a part of a religious tradition allows us to remember that we're not alone, right? That there are people who have gone before us and that there are people who are with us right now on this journey of faith. I don't know about you, but I want to be a part of something like that where there are other people who are going through the same things I'm going through and I'm along for the ride with them. And remember what I said last week, Jesus is our captain. So we are looking to somebody, and he is the one who is perfect, right? So we look to him. But all of us are in the same boat. No pun intended. All right. There is also the common story that we share. And by story, I don't mean something abstract or untrue. I mean the narrative that we all embrace as people of faith, as Christians. It gives us the ability to understand who we are and our place in the world. So here's a little story for you, and maybe this will ring some bells. In the beginning, there was a God, and he created everything, and he created human beings. These human beings had the opportunity to be in relationship with that God, but instead they went their own way, and they fell from grace. So this God put a plan back in place to bring humanity back to himself. And he sent his son, named Jesus, to accomplish that plan, and he gave us the example of his life, of his death, and of his resurrection in order to see what it would take for us to be a part of that plan and to be a part of the solution. And so by and through Jesus, we get connected to God, and that allows us to finally be back in a relationship with him. Does that story sound familiar? And again, I'm not saying, I use the word story in a very specific way. I don't mean that this is just story time, everyone. We're just all buying into the story. No, there's good reasons to believe of the historical nature. There's good reasons to believe that this goes deeper than than what we normally refer to as just a story. But for the lack of a better expression, this is the narrative that we all are a part of. And religion gives us that narrative to be a part of, right? It's religion that gives us the Bible, which gives us that overall story. And again, everyone is in the same boat here. Whether you're hardcore fundamentalist Christian or whether you're the most secular atheist there ever was, everybody needs a narrative to live their life by, to how to understand themselves in the world. Well, we happen to think that the Christian narrative, that this faith-based narrative, is the one that gives us hope, the one that gives us meaning and purpose, and a mission. And so we all have a common mission, right? As we embrace this common purpose and this common story, we'll then have a common mission together. Because we don't want to see the world go the way it could go, right? I was going to say, and I'll be a little bold, we don't want to see the world go to hell, right? And it could easily go to hell. So we want to see the world be transformed into something that it could be and it should be. And we want to be a part of that, right? So what did Jesus say? Go into all the world and preach the good news to everyone. Boy, that's an inclusive message. That's saying that you're all invited. There's nobody out there who will be discriminated against either because of their race or their gender or their lifestyle or their economic status, whatever it is, whoever they are, they're invited to be a part of this process, part of this journey. To take the message of this good news that we can have relationship with God. We can be restored back to that. And Jesus shows us how to do that by turning from our sin and living as he lived, right? But then once we sort of figure out that religion is that which binds us together, binds us to that tradition and binds us together, well, what do we do? What are we supposed to do then? Because there might not be anything worse than being bored. And that's not even true, because I'm sure if people were in pain or going through bad things like that, that's worse. But being bored is pretty crummy, right? And if we don't fill our time with the things that bind us together and things that bind us to this wonderful religious tradition, then we're going to be going nowhere, right? So what we do is we engage in repetitive traditions. And that sounds maybe to some like, I don't want to be a part of repetitive traditions. Well, I got news for you again. You're already doing it in your life. No matter what you're doing, you're already engaging in a lot of habits. Why not engage in religious repetitive traditions? Again, we're creatures of habits. Rather than filling our time with repetitive, useless things, we can engage in the traditions and rituals of the people of Jesus, Jesus' people, the church. So let's look at the original church very briefly here. In Acts chapter 2, it says that all the believers devoted themselves to the apostles' teaching and to fellowship and to the sharing in meals and to prayer. So they devoted themselves. They were, consumed with learning from the apostles, sharing their life together by fellowship and by eating meals together and by worshiping together. That's what it's meant by prayer there, worshiping together. And then it says in Hebrews, let us not neglect our meeting together as some people do, but encourage one another. It's like, and I know this from my own experience, and I know this by seeing people not come back to church after us being gone for so long. And then, they have this opportunity to come back to church and they don't come. Well, guess what happens? I'm sure you could probably get easily discouraged if you're not part of a church family, right? You can get stagnant in your life, in your journey, right? You can sense that you're no longer growing as a person unless you're meeting together with your church family and us challenging one another, encouraging one another, right? So this is what we need to be doing as a church, as being a part of this religious tradition, is worshiping together and learning together, assembling together. So important. And of course, we're doing it both in person and online, but I'd rather see people do it online than not at all. So please, I encourage you, if you're hearing my voice right now and you've not really been giving being part of our church the priority that it really should have, I encourage you to make it a priority. And then as a church, it's our responsibility as leadership to make sure that the scripture is being read to the church. Paul said to Timothy, focus on reading the scriptures to the church, encouraging them and teaching them, right? That's what we're supposed to do when we get together, is listen to God's word through the scripture and learn together and grow together, be guided together. And then finally, day by day, continuing with one mind. Can we all have one mind? Is that possible, to have one mind among a bunch of people who have our own minds? Do you think this means having one mind? Do you think this means we always have to agree with one another and we can never disagree? No. It means that, especially in a grand sense, that we are growing together, that we have the same purpose, that we have the same overall story that we subscribe to, the narrative that we're a part of, the overall mission, that we're growing together. Each of us are bound to one another because we've said we're doing this together. So day by day, continuing with one mind doesn't mean we all have to have the same opinion. It just means we all have the same purpose and goal, and we're part of this together. And we're going to continue to grow together. And so that's what it means to have a religion. You know, faith is a relationship with God, the journey, right? That's priority, that's number one. But we also should have a religious tradition that enables us to have roots to help us along the way. All right. See, so I do think we need to be careful, because religion certainly can become something cold and lifeless, right? If you're just doing traditions and you're engaging in things just because that's just what you do, and there's no life in it, there's no passion within it or enthusiasm, well then it's you might as well just do something else, because there's no point in that. But when you couple and you combine that enthusiasm, that faith, that journey, that relationship with the tradition, then suddenly it becomes something very powerful, something deep that we can be a part of. And so I think we need to be careful. Paul, Sean, come on up. We're going to sing Lord, I Need You, because you always have to focus in and say, again, God is the destination and the one who is with us on that journey. But we also have these wonderful things that we engage in. But again, always remembering God is number one and we need him in our lives.